Welcome to Giants Top 100 Players. I'm Bob Papa as we continue our countdown to the top 100 players in the history of the franchise. And I'm joined by Vinny Ditrani, who spent 42 years covering the National Football League, 34 years covering the Giants, and 12 years as a Hall of Fame voter. And Vinny, we're going to go through numbers 21 through 30 here. And let's start with number 25, George Martin. George, when you think about the history of this franchise, and you were here during the lean times to deliver the Giants their first championship in 30 years, what does it mean to be acknowledged by this very blue ribbon panel of being the 25th greatest player in the history of the franchise?
You know, Bob, it's a great question. And first of all, before I answer, let me just say I'm steeply honored. It's a real privilege for me, especially being an 11th round draft choice. Looking back over my career, you know, I was just fortunate to have been selected by an organization which I think is one of the class organizations in the National Football League. And even though it was during an era where, as you say, we weren't, the toast of the town, we emerged and eventually became Super Bowl champions, and that's just something that I will take to my grave as being one of the greatest accomplishments in my life.
Elway is looking for a target, goes out to the right side, intercepted, George Martin! 30, 45, at the 45, Elway takes it and breaks the tackle. 40, 35, 30 for Martin, Martin to the 20, Martin to the 10, he's in! What a run!
Hey, George, have you ever run that far with the football?
Never? You got to be kidding. With the ball? Never.
Justin, you come in at number 30 on this list. When you think about all the great players and the great defensive players that came with the 86 and 90 Giants, and in the 50s, to have your name kind of etched in stone as a two-time Super Bowl champion and being number 30 on this list is pretty amazing, isn't it?
I mean, similar to George, man, I'm a kid from Kelton, Alabama. There's almost more people on this list than it is in my hometown. So from that perspective, like, it's a dream to even be in the running or even in the mention. When I think about the Giants and, like, you know, what I wanted to embody as a Giant, it was more important about what you did off the field. So being able to, like, represent this franchise, which I think is the best in the NFL, not just one of the best. I do think that it is the best. When you think about this list and you think about my time at the Giants, I got the opportunity to not only play with great players, but be tutored and mentored by great people of what it meant to be a part of this franchise. And I tried to embody that throughout my entire career, and I still try to embody that today. So thank you, guys.
George, is that something that kind of makes the Giants unique in the sense that paying it forward?
I've always had the philosophy, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And what was done to me was there are a group of guys, along with the organization, that took me under their wing and sort of nurtured me and tutored me. It's a difference between being a football player and a professional athlete. And that distinction was made to me almost immediately. And it was supported, I think, very affirmatively by the organization itself. Yeah, you're here to become a professional athlete in the sport of football, but there's also an obligation that you have as a player off the field, you know, to the general public, the people who support you. And that was something that I loved about this organization almost immediately. They integrated us with a lot of organizations that looked up to us, and we helped to support them by them helping support us. And having those early mentors to set the stage for us was, I think, was just it was just invaluable.
One thing I learned about covering the Giants is that most of the guys in that locker room, whatever year it was, were good, straight guys. And the organization seemed to go for those kind of players, like the two of you, that, you know, who are good, solid citizens as well as really good football players. George, when Super Bowl 21, when halftime, you're down 10-9.
Yeah.
But you knew you were the better team.
Backs up to the 2. He's in the end zone. He got him. Crazy! George Martin is the man.
Yeah, we knew we were the better team. Although we were a little bit concerned, I think we were more, and I'll be honest with you, we had come from a cold weather climate on the East Coast and all the way out to a hot weather climate. And I think it was just the temperature, the adjustment that we were getting used to. And once the sun went down and we acclimated, it was a different ball game altogether. Yeah. We had that confidence at halftime, and Parcells was exuding that confidence because he says, guys, he says, we got it. He says, keep your poise. He kept saying, keep your poise, and fight, and we will become champions. And when you're that close to becoming, you're going to do everything humanly possible to make sure you get over the hump, and that's what we did.
The rest of your life, man, nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did it.
Justin, obviously a two-time Super Bowl champion. You played with so many great players. When you think back on your time with the team, what were some of the things that the most fun? I mean, obviously sacking Brady twice in Super Bowls is pretty good. Not doing it once, but twice.
Brady back, has time, steps up, gets hit, sacked, fumble the football, it's loose on the ground, they scramble for it. Giant ball at midfield.
Brady back to throw, steps up, sacked again, back at the 15-yard line. Justin Tuck got in there.
The game stuff, I got to be reminded about the game stuff because we played so many games. We had so many good moments.
Brady is back. He's under pressure and he gets sacked at the 13-yard line.
But, like, I kind of blacked out in games. And, like, you watch the film and, like, you remember, okay, I remember doing that, right? But some of the stuff in the Super Bowls, you kind of just forget about it a little bit. So, like, my answer to that question won't be anything on the football field. It's more of the stuff around the travel. It's more about the stuff around the locker room.
We're going here to bury a dynasty. Business as usual. Holla.
A lot of times people ask me, what did I miss most about playing in the NFL? It's like, the first thing is the checks. That's the first thing. But the second thing is just the camaraderie around all of us coming from different walks of life, whether that be the West Coast, the East Coast, you know, whether that be what our beliefs are, what are our family dynamics, all these different things. And I was blessed to be captain of this team for a lot of years. Your job is to figure out how to bring 53 guys to pull the rope the same direction.
I'm mad at y'all wanted today. I got a ring. Chris, you ain't got one. You don't know what it feel like. Rock, you ain't got one. You don't know what it feel like. Limber, you ain't got one. You don't know what it feel like. Boss, you ain't got one. You don't know what it feel like. I'm telling you right now, it's the best feeling in the world. And if it's on me today, you're going to have one after this.
You played for Parcells. You played for Tom Coughlin. How important were those guys in this whole, you know, leadership thing?
I think leadership is far more valuable than talent.
Absolutely.
I guarantee you, if you said it to me in Georgetown, as much crap as we talk about our talent or how fast we could run or how, none of us really feel like we were the most talented person in our own era, in our own, you know. When I look at you know, some of the guys I played against, I'm looking at talent-wise, I'm like, good God. Yeah. But like, how we looked at things as a whole, leadership, you know, character, what we did on the field, off the field, that's what I think really, really embodies this list as far as, you know, the top 100 players in Giants history.
I echo those sentiments, by the way, almost identically, because I think people confuse the fact that we can be, quote unquote, football players without being football fans.
Yep.
And that's what basically he's saying, because, you know, you have the opportunity to go out there and do something that is a vocation. It's a job. And I always tell people when they ask me, say, weren't you a football player? And I said, not really. I said, what do you do for a living? And they say, well, I'm a banker, I'm a professional. And I say, well, so too were I on the professional level. We don't play football, we work at it. It's a job. And that's the way we approach it, as a vocation. And the better you are able to do it, and I'll give an example, because Bill Parcells used to pull me aside all the time. And Bill was a no-nonsense guy. I don't mean to get ahead of the game here, but he was always demanding more of the leadership than he was of the rank and file. And that's something I always respected and admired about him. It's not about how you just go out and play when the ball is snapped, but what happens when that ball is not being snapped, and what are you doing to make yourself and the team around you better?
I want to talk about some of the other guys in this group of 21 to 30. You have Leonard Marshall, who's a two-time Super Bowl champion, who comes in at number 26 on this list. Let me ask you about Leonard, number 26 on this list as a teammate, because obviously you guys won a title together.
Yeah.
He came in as a young pup. Your thoughts about him as a player?
And Leonard was a complete ball player. Whereas, you know, me, I was kind of elusive and sort of a pass rushing specialist. Leonard with two gap, he'd chase down the run, he'd stop the offensive line, and he would rush the passer with efficiency and tenacity. And that's why he made All-Pro, and that's why he went to 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, and Vinny, I mean, the 1990 NFC Championship game where Montana gets knocked out.
Plenty of time, rolls away, now runs away, eludes a tackle, his head fumbles the ball. Free ball.
Leonard Marshall caught him with his helmet right in the middle of the back, upper part of the back. You know, a good legit hit.
I mean, Leonard is blocked not once but twice, gets off the ground.
He comes all the way around.
And comes all the way around and basically ends Montana's career with the Niners because he didn't play the next year and enters Steve Young. Great pass rushers. When you think about these guys, what's the common trait that you all had?
Hating quarterbacks.
Hear, hear.
But also, I think versatility too, right? Watching George play, watching Leonard play, we could play any position in the front. We really could. That's the one thing I tried to like make sure that I did a lot of, because in this league, you're gonna become the old guy, or you're gonna become the guy that's not as good as you used to be. Yep. And like, you stick around by being able to do multiple things. That puts a wrinkle in a lot of things that offenses like to do. So I think that's the common thing, that the trait I look at from like some of these pass rushers we're talking about.
Number 21 on this list is Arie Weinmeister. He was a guy that started in the old AFL with the New York Yankees and winds up coming to the Giants. But he was also a quarterback who basically, NFL history says, he was the first star defensive player.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, even before, the defense didn't really become popular until the Giants in the 50s with Huff and all those guys. That kind of brought the defense to, till then it was all, offense. But I think he was one of the first players back in the dead ball years, shall we say, he was a defensive stalwart. I think he may well be the first really star defensive player.
Another guy I want to ask you about, Brad Van Pelt. Because I know as a kid he was like my favorite player.
Yeah.
And a linebacker wearing number 10.
Yeah.
Coming out of Michigan State. But as dominant a player as there was in the NFL.
He was my LT, and that's quite a statement. Brad was he was just unreasonably talented, because if you look at him, he was tall, he was kind of gangly, but he had such determination and he had such just raw ability. He was phenomenal, and I think had it not been for his abilities over there complimenting mine, I probably not have made it early on, because he shut the run down and he pressured the passer, and he had great depth to get to the drop zone to defend the pass. When the ball was snapped, he was 100%.
You think about what he did in college. I mean, I don't think any player now in major colleges can do this anymore. He was an All-American safety in the fall. He was a starting forward on basketball team at Michigan State, and in the spring he was a star relief pitcher who was actually drafted in the first round by the Cardinals, St. Louis Cardinals baseball team, in 1973.
He was drafted in all three sports, right?
He was all three sports.
Yeah.
I mean, how many guys in college now can do that?
Number 22 on this list, Jim Kavage. We're keeping it on the defensive thing.
Another defensive end.
13 years. I mean, it wasn't an official stat, but when the Giants made it to the NFL championship game in '63, by today's metrics of looking back at the game tape and everything else, he would have had 25 sacks that season.
Yeah.
And you have to put things in context too, Bob, because it was a more of an abbreviated season back those days.
Yeah, those were 12 games.
Exactly.
That was before they even went to 14.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Right. So that was a
14.
heck of a stat.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they didn't throw the ball as much either.
I was going to that point. Like it wasn't like they were throwing 50 times a game.
He was kind of overshadowed at first because he played with Andy Robustelli and Huff.
Sure.
And Jimmy
Greer.
Patton and Rosie Greer and Dick Lynch and Erich Barnes. That was a great defense. He really was kind of underrated until he really till those guys left, and he was kind of like a guy who was there, but he developed into a really star player on his own.
Number 27 on the list. Well, let's talk about Homer Jones, because I think Giants fans, they think of Odell and his explosive plays, and they think it's Amani Toomer, franchise all-time leading receiver, and Victor Cruz, and there's been a list of them. But Homer Jones really is the standard. 22 yards a catch for his career.
22 yards a catch for his career?
For his career.
Wow, that's
up there. Where does that stand like historically?
Well, in 1967, he had 49 catches. He averaged 24 yards a catch, and he scored 13 touchdowns. And he finished his career for any receiver in the history of the NFL with at least 200 receptions. He has the most yards per catch of any player in the history of the sport. 22.26.
That's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
And inventing the spike.
That's right. He invented the spike, too.
Invented the spike.
More than worthy of the top 100, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
So speaking of offense, guys that you don't like because they're trying to score and you're trying to stop them to score, but DellSchner, 23, 18 yards a catch during his Giant career.
I know. I mean, he was just so incredible. Schaffner was such a smooth player. I mean, and Tittle, of course, had his best years with the Giants. I mean, I remember sitting in the bleachers at Yankee Stadium. 50 cents we could get into the game. In 50 cents in your high school card, you could sit in the bleachers at Yankee Stadium and watch those guys, and they were just phenomenal. He and Tittle changed that whole team. I mean, until then, it was defense. Connerly, they plugged Gifford and Webster, and they plugged along on offense. But then when Tittle and Schaffner got there, it changed the whole thing. There's a story that defense got a turnover one day, and Robustelli was coming off the field, and Kyle Rott was going on, and Robustelli said to him, "Okay, now hold them."
Go out and hold them.
Speaking of Kyle Rott, he's 24 on this list, and maybe one, like these guys talking about leadership and fellowship within their team. Kyle Rott was maybe the most popular player on his team. What was it, like 7 guys?
They named their sons.
Named their sons Kyle.
Yeah.
With teammates because they respected him so much.
Right. Yeah.
That's a pretty big bet.
Yeah.
I mean, he made the adjustment from running back to receiver also.
Here is a Giant thrill of the year. Rott slips like quicksilver into the open. He outruns the field for 52 yards. Rott comes back on his own college gridiron. The Giants win it 24-6.
Number 29, let's talk a little bit about Joe Morrison.
Joe Morrison.
And what he brought to the table.
Joe Morrison was a quarterback at University of Cincinnati. But the Giants drafted him as a halfback, running back. But then Morrison went on to played running back, fullback, wide receiver, tight end. And people forget, 1961 championship game in Green Bay, he was a starting strong safety for the Giants. So his versatility was incredible. And the numbers he put up just on his longevity are great. And, very talented player again.
Guys, this has been a lot of fun. It is such an honor to sit here with both of you.
Thank you.
Once a Giant, always a Giant. And now once a Giant, always a Giant, a top 100 Giant. When I say that to George Martin, what do you think?
I think someone made a mistake. No, seriously, it's an honor that I could never dream of. And the organization, as Justin said earlier, it's the top of the list. And you are a member of an elite denotion within that organization. And it's something that will outlive me, and I'm so proud of that. But I'm also proud of the guys who I've called teammates. It's just unfathomable. I actually have a hard time comprehending it. It's been the greatest thing in my life.
Justin, same question for you. Once a Giant, always a Giant, now forever a top 100 of all time.
I think legacy is so important to me. But being on this list, being a part of this franchise, being in the same breath of people like George and everybody on this list, just truly blessed. And it's something that just is super, super special.
Guys, thank you so much. Vinny, thank you for your work as far as helping us get this list together.
Actually, it was kind of fun. I mean, it was difficult, but it was kind of fun.
I'll get that check to you, Vinny.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I think I voted for you, George.
Giants fans, you check out all the Giants social media platforms as we continue our countdown to the top 100 players in the history of the New York Football Giants.